Candidates the best hiring experience to separate the great from the good, and will help you adapt to the challenges of hiring remotely. This brings faster hiring, reduces bias, and gives your engineers more time to solve problems that matter. That's why we're already working with some of the best engineering teams in the world. Schedule a demo with us to learn how we can help you shape the future of work today. Codelity, remote tech hiring everywhere.
Hello and welcome to the Importance of Job Leveling for Engineering Organization panel. I would like to start with thanking our speakers for joining us today and thank Pando for partnering with us. So let's start with some introductions. Our speakers today are Tina and Leslie, and my name is Łukasz, and I am an engineering manager at Codelity. So, Tina.
Hi, everyone.
Tell us something.
Hi, everyone. I'm saying hi from Toronto, Canada. I work at Wave Financial. It's a software company based out of Toronto, and we provide software for small business owners for financial management. I've been in the software industry for over 18 years. First as a software developer, and over the last few years as a leader in engineering organizations. And I'm excited to be here speaking with Leslie and Łukasz.
Thanks, and hi, I'm Leslie Carr. I live in San Francisco, California, and I'm the head of engineering at Pando. I've been in the industry for way too long. I started out around 2000 doing help desk and building websites. And I moved my way through network engineering to DevOps and SRE, and then to engineering leadership. So I'm really excited to share all the things that I've learned along the way.
Thank you. So we know why we are here. So I would like to get your take on what does job leveling currently look like in your organization? Leslie, can you give us some background on it?
Yeah, so I work for Pando, who is a company who our entire goal is helping organizations creating job levels and job rubrics and giving feedback on that. So at Pando, we sort of believe in the philosophy of having a lot of job levels, even to start, even for a small organization. So for example, we have 11. Level 11 is the CEO, all the way to 1, which is entry level. We believe that it's really important to have levels be across the organization in every single department. So that means that, level 2 is really based around your scope of responsibility and your impact. And while different departments may start at different levels, for example, engineering starts at level 2 because even an entry-level engineer is expected to have a relatively large impact. But yeah, and one pitfall I've seen with a lot of companies with not having enough levels is as soon as you get to that sort of mid-career stage, we're talking someone in the 5 to 10 years, while they're still growing, their levels are sort of stagnating. And then there's a question of how do you recognize and compensate people fairly at those levels? So I'm a real strong believer in breaking up those mid and higher levels into some slightly smaller, more granular levels than some of the large, FANG organizations.
That's true. Having a clear path, it's actually something that is really nice to have. But Tina, how is it working in Wave?
So at Wave, over the last 6 to 10 months, we've actually made a shift from having fewer engineering titles to actually introducing levels for some of the reasons that Leslie just shared. And in fact, I'd actually go further than what Leslie shared. It's not just the mid-level. What we noticed was even the entry-level engineers Someone who's graduating right out of university and someone who's intermediate, there can be quite a bit of gap in their skills and impact. And as we know, people are encouraged by the growth and impact, the compensation updates, and also getting real-time feedback against the target next level that they were reaching across. And that's what we've seen a shift in after we introduced more of these levels at the software engineer and the senior software engineer level, is individuals actually being very focused and working on their career plans with their managers towards their next level.
That's a great point. And one thing I've seen at a couple of organizations is actually arguing against career ladders, which I obviously disagree with, because they think that if you have a career ladder that says this is what your responsibilities are, a junior engineer might not try to reach beyond that. And I honestly have never found that to be the case. I find people, in all stages of their career, but especially earlier in their career, are really trying to grow rapidly. And so I found it had the opposite effect, and instead encourage people to reach beyond what I would expect their impact is, because they can see examples of, oh, this is the next level. I want to be doing that. I want to show that I'm there.
That's true. Actually, when at Cogliti people are joining us, one of the first questions that is popping even during the recruitment is, what is the plan for me? How can I grow? How can I become better? And obviously having spent time to actually define the leveling, the progress that people can take, it's something really meaningful for them. So this is true. So I wanted to ask you, why is the practice of job leveling becoming an essential part of attracting and retaining talent?
I can share my thoughts, and then would love to hear some of your thoughts too, Leslie. But what we've seen, and I've seen throughout my career, is in terms of retaining talent wants to have a lot of impact. Good talent wants to get really transparent feedback around how they're doing and where they're going. They want to know where they're going. What are their gaps? What are things they need to do better? And job leveling helps with each one of those. And of course, it helps with fair compensation across different teams. Making sure that you have processes in place where managers are able to help each of their reports towards their career progress, towards assessing them against levels. Also, making sure that you have processes in place to promote engineers and individuals so that they are not only progressing but also being aptly and timely rewarded and appreciated for the growth that they're having. That to me is a big one for retaining. In terms of hiring talent, which was your second thing, what we're noticing since we've made this introduced more levels is it helps us at the time of hiring, where we're able to better assess individuals after their interview towards a level, because software engineer was such a wide range, from someone who just graduated to someone who's close to being an intermediate engineer, that it was hard to assess them. And now that we have levels that cater to each one of those, and then making sure that they're compensated correctly for what they're bringing to the table, goes a long way in hiring the right talent and then retaining them and promoting them and growing them post their joining.
Oh yeah, I definitely especially want to dig into the hiring piece, because hiring is one of my favorite things to do. So exciting, right? You bring on new people, you get new energy, you get new insights. It's one of my favorite parts of my job. but what it is really difficult, hiring is difficult, and coming up with an interview plan can be really difficult, right? And so, because everyone wants to say, well, what should I hire for? And honestly, if you don't know, a lot of people fall back just on really complex algorithms questions. It's like, oh yeah, in my Stanford CS course, I had to solve this algorithm. It was hard. So this is what our candidates need to do. But let's be honest, in most cases, you aren't going to need to know how to do complex algorithms for most web applications. It's not that common. So if you have a really well set up job ladder, you can look and see what do we value in current engineers and what are we rewarding in current engineers. And then you can make questions and map them to the career ladders. And I really loved your point, Tina, about it is so hard to decide where someone is, job level wise, if you don't have some sort of good assessment rubric. And if you have this really great ladder, you can say, aha, based on all of these questions that tie to these parts of the ladder, we think you are here. It can make for really transparent offers as well, because we can say you're already showing someone what their career path is. Because you can even share your job ladder and say, hey, look, this is why we said you're a level 4. And these are the things that we had concerns about, which kept you from being level 5, right? And so all of this, you're already saying to this candidate, I already have a plan. I'm already thinking about your career development and thinking about you. It's so much more individualized, and it's really important. And yeah, and it, it helps people see their future in your company. So I think that's really important. And then for retaining, everyone wants feedback. Everyone wants to know how they can grow, right? Like it's so important. And so, you want to be able to have a good reason why you are or aren't promoting somebody. And that's so important. And so if you have this great ladder, you can point at it and you can say, these are the things to work on. And then it also even helps guide you to making a plan. If I don't have this guidance, even as an experienced manager, it can be hard to figure out what a plan is. But if I have this guidance, I can say, aha, here, this is what we're working on. I can pair you up with a good mentor, or we can find books or courses or something to help you out with these areas. And so it really brings transparency. And then you also talked about equity and diversity and inclusion and underrepresented groups in tech. And I think in many cases that really can help because, it's been shown again and again that a lot of times underrepresented groups in tech, they get placed at a lower job level, right? And if you're making a really subjective choice, it's so much easier to let any unconscious bias in. So, you're trying to decide between a 3 and a 4, you're more likely to allow bias to affect this leveling. Now, if you have a really strong job ladder, hopefully since you're assessing against that, you can be a little more objective and hopefully be more accurate. And same thing with promotions. So it really helps keep you accountable and helps keep you, and helps reduce your unconscious biases, which, everyone who is a human has.
Yeah, I mean, I really love the last point you made, Leslie. It's something that we are finding definitely to be the case as we review our numbers. Again, having levels and then having the ability to review them across the different teams that we have at Wave Engineering and being able to dissect the different diversity data and looking at maybe there's a different kind of support that certain individuals at certain levels need, and it's also helping us figure out how can we support our managers in supporting their individuals at certain levels or certain demographics, etc. So it's so much easier to do it with the levels than the wider ranges that are harder to work with.
Exactly. And then also for retention, you really want to make sure that your managers are being as equal as possible, because nothing more, dissatisfying than finding out one of your peers got a promotion even though you're doing the same work. Yeah, that's a great way to demoralize people and make them start looking for another career. So yeah, so I feel like having these stronger ladders helps the managers of managers to to be more certain that their managers are assessing people more fairly.
This is true. I think that what you are describing also becomes pretty apparent when the company is more established. But do you see any pitfalls for high growth startups trying to implement job leveling? Because it looks like this is an afterthought usually.
Definitely. And I've seen companies say, well, we're really small, we don't need job leveling. But which I feel like as soon as you have more than 4 or 5 engineers, you need job leveling, because people still want to know their growth path, right? Like, people still want to know where they'll be, and you're going to hire people at different levels. You aren't going to be able to hire only people with, 30 years of job experience, and that's going to be it. So I think it's especially important at a high growth startup, because you need to retain every single one of the people that you hire, because all of their collective knowledge is so important and so just priceless.
That's true.
Yeah, I think I can see, Lucas, your probably where your question was coming from was, hey, would startups really have the bandwidth to, the management bandwidth to potentially work on the leveling work? Because it does require homework to put in place some leveling and then put in place the structures to make sure that people are growing. So yeah, I think beyond the first few engineers, when you have a manager, potentially is when that manager needs to start putting into place some of this work, so that they can provide the feedback and the right growth structures to each of their individuals. And I believe there's tools, and I know Pando is one of them, but also a lot of work that's gone into this leveling that some of the smaller companies can probably just lift it up and use it in a lightweight way.
Yeah, a lot of large companies have put their job ladders online. Mm-hmm. So even if you aren't going to buy Pando, just steal one and then just edit it for you, right? I think it's a lot easier if you have something to start out with.
Yes, I think this clarity, this transparency, what is expected, what is being counted or scored, this makes people more open to what is happening, how this happened. So do you think that job leveling impacts your ability to coach or mentor more junior engineers? Like, for example, giving feedback and structuring this feedback. Tina, what do you think?
Yeah, feedback is definitely, I think, the most important areas that is positively impacted by job leveling. At Wave, each of the levels has description around the kind of impact that level is expected to, a person at that level is expected to create. We also have like a growth framework that we've published that gives tools to our managers around different areas of work that a software engineer does. Areas can be across, of course, coding, which is like the main thing that we focus on, but that's only one aspect. There's communication, there's ownership, there's mentoring, like all of those different areas. What we're doing is, each of our managers is basically reviewing an engineer against their target level, like where they're going next, and then working with them to create a plan, which could be, hey, what's the next, maybe a next project that individual could take on, or one of the next tasks that they have to do, what could they be doing better? Maybe it's code reviews that they need to really improve the feedback that they're writing, or maybe their PRs need to be smaller. Like very, very specific, actionable small things that manager and each individual are working on in their journey to the next level, and that becomes very much a thing that they build on. Every whatever frequency they have, couple of weeks, a month, to review the career for that person. And then there's a chance for that person, because their manager and them are having such a collaborative look at their career growth, is each individual gets a chance to work with their manager and say, hey, this is the kind of project I want to work on because it will help me create an impact in this area that I'm really passionate about. Or I already did that. So it becomes a very collaborative process. Also through this process, mentoring becomes easier. Some of the senior engineers who may not necessarily be managers, but are mentoring some of the junior engineers, can get very specific areas that they help their mentees or other engineers with, and it creates a very growth-oriented dynamic in the whole engineering organization.
Definitely. I love how you mentioned things like communication, because a pitfall I've seen is only putting, direct technical skills on your career ladder. And then I feel like that misses out on a lot of the important work that engineers do. And it allows people with those kinds of skills to not be recognized for that work. For example, code review. I think every engineering organization should have code review as one of the competencies on their career ladder, because code reviewing is so freaking important, right? And by putting it on your career ladder, you're also saying, this is important. This is a skill you need to do, and this is something that you need to do well. So I think that honestly helps improve the culture of code review, improve the feedback people are getting, and encourage people to review more quickly instead of letting those reviews pile up.
Yeah, it is also a way to communicate what is important for us. So obviously, this is a good place to put it. We actually have a question, so maybe Leslie will be able to answer it. When talking about job leveling, what would a good ladder look like? Can you give an example?
Yeah. So the words intern, junior, mid, senior, they're interesting because I feel like those labels may still be important for like your LinkedIn and your resume. You want to make sure that you aren't ignoring those, so you aren't ignoring the impact someone's doing, and you need to realize that people are going to have another job. Like as much as you want, it's unlikely that your company is going to be, the forever job for everyone working for you. So I sort of like to have internally just numbered levels, because I feel like that, I don't want anyone to feel like a judgment on like mid, senior, junior, anything like that. And those, because I feel like those words can have a bit of a judgment, but you still need to remember that you need to have them so that people can, attach them to their LinkedIn for their next career opportunity.
Mm-hmm. But taking it further, do you feel that introducing a dual track, so one for engineering or individual contributor and then managerial path. How do you see this being an advantage to just having a one track that you can have additional things added there?
Oh, well, I strongly believe in engineering, IC work and management work are two completely separate job ladders. They're a very different set of skills. There's a little bit of overlap, but it's very different day to day. And since your day to day is very different, your job ladder also has to be very different because you have to be judging against different things. I think that having these really spelled out does allow people to look and switch. And you can even say, hey, right here's your job ladder right now. You want to move to management. So we're going to look at this and we're going to find projects for you to practice these skills so you're ready for this transition to this, parallel separate ladder. So I think that's so important. But love to hear how you think about that, Tina.
Yeah, totally +1 to you on having those as separate tracks. We call them mastery and leadership at Wave. Definitely the skill sets required are different. We also have made it explicit that it's not a one-way door, like especially when individuals are still earlier on in their career and trying to figure out whether they should, pursue mastery track or try on leadership. And then see, we actually make it pretty explicit that you could sign up for trying to be a lead on a team, and that could start with leading a project, even as an individual contributor. Almost all our intermediate to senior engineers actually get to lead projects, so that's anyway something we do, and then add on it some of the team leadership skills. That's when individuals start to get a taste of what engineering leadership or management roles can look like. And really, some people love it and want to pursue it further. And for other people, it's not really my cup of tea. And I'm going to go focus on the mastery track. We've had at least a few individuals who've actually managed individuals and teams and then decided to switch to mastery again. That's something we highly encourage. We also, again, managers of managers have to focus more on the career development of other, leaders. So that's something that's again a very different skill set, how to manage through other managers, and definitely something that has a pretty big impact. So highly encourage organizations to focus on it as a separate track because of the impact it'll have.
And I love how you mentioned it's not a one-way door, which is great. I feel like it's so important to remember that management is not a promotion. Sometimes you could consider it even a demotion, but I feel like it's so most important thing is any individual's growth, where they want to focus, and they try management, and even could have been a manager for several years, and then they're like, look, I feel like my IC work is where I want to focus. Then support them, because that means you have someone who has all of this great knowledge on leadership skills, usually management. A lot of your job is communicating across departments and aligning visions. Then all of a sudden you get an IC with all those skills. I feel like that's a bonus.
Definitely. Also want to add that with this dual, like, although it's not a one-way door, people can switch. The more or the longer you've stayed in the leadership track, the harder it is to go back to the mastery track, because you've been so out of touch with the technical side of things, that if I were to switch back to the individual contributor role, I would have so much to brush up on and catch up, that it would look very different in terms of what that switch might look like the longer you stay in one track in your career.
That is so true. If I went back to the IC track, I would definitely be down a large number of levels because my coding skills have gotten very rusty.
Mm-hmm.
I can relate to that. But when we are talking about the ladder and the communication, I think that this feedback part is becoming really important there, to have this feedback culture and be able to raise issues or kudos actually as well. So how does it work for you in your companies? Tina, can you tell us something more about it?
So your question is how we use appreciation.
How are you building the feedback culture? Is it seen as something natural, or is it coming with a little bit of a resistance? Are people hesitant to give feedback, for example, to higher ups, or how does it look?
Yeah, I am amazed by the culture at my company right now. Like, individuals are very, very team focused and very much appreciative of each other. That being said, there's also a lot of work that leadership at Wave puts in to make sure that we are always becoming better at that as an organization. We have a tool in Slack that we use currently for individuals to give kudos. We also have a culture where we celebrate individuals' milestones, whether it's professional milestones, anniversaries, or personal milestones like having a baby or moving into a new house or anything like that. So there's a lot of focus on that celebration. And then in terms of feedback, there's a lot of appreciation feedback in general within teams, kudos. We have a ships channel where each individual or team that ships a feature or something important, there's a big shout out to everyone who worked on it. We have a town hall shout outs where managers actually appreciate specific individuals who made a big difference. I think the work that will take it even further, that I believe in general helps every organization, is the growth feedback, and that's where levels come in. It's even though every organization could do better at appreciation, I think it's something still easier to do than actually giving constructive, authentic, valuable feedback that the other person will receive openly, right? That's the tricky part, is how do you give feedback that is actually helpful to the other person and that the other person will actually action on and will help them. And that's where that's the recipe that I think we're with the levels, it's working really well for us, where managers can, like, we have a 360 feedback that any individual could start a process to collect 360 feedback from each of their peers, and then the manager helps them walk through that, helps them tie it to their again the next level or whatever they're working on next, and piece it together in the form of very actionable insights and feedback.
Yeah, and I love that you brought up, feedback isn't natural, it's a skill, and that means you need to practice it. We have Feedback Fridays at Pando, where I encourage folks to give feedback to peers. One thing I loved at Patreon, they had a Feedback Olympics occasionally, where if you got a helpful piece of feedback, you'd sort of go up and put a gold star next to that person's name, and whoever had the most stars won. So it was a really fun way to gamify giving feedback. And really, it's, while you can lead by example in giving feedback as a leader, honestly, as leaders, we don't see, I'm seeing only a small fraction of all of what my reports are doing every day. So I feel like having that peer feedback is so important and so crucial. So also sometimes, I poke people to say, hey, I see you've been working with, Jane on this project. Can you give her some feedback? and usually people are happy to. It's just one of those things that's, you just have to learn how to give and then also how to receive. And that's just easier with time and repetition.
Yeah. Something else I'd like to add here, in terms of feedback, there's giving and receiving, and there's also seeking feedback. I mean, and I see that as a leader, if you're openly seeking feedback about the work that you're doing and actually actioning on feedback that you're receiving, that sends a really strong signal and makes it safe for every individual to seek feedback. And that's along with, of course, practice and at our company, our PNC group does sessions like that where it's around teaching people how to share constructive feedback. I think all of these things together make a pretty big difference.
Yeah, and if anyone wants a sort of concrete example, I forget. There's some cute acronym, but like action, impact. Like, so you sort of, if you're trying to write constructive feedback, write the action, write the impact that the action had, and then optionally, if there's any, remediation steps that you'd like, because you want to, because you need to call out what happened, which, surprisingly, not unsurprisingly important, and then also really make sure you're calling out what the impact to you was, because maybe someone didn't realize, like, oh, hey, when you changed this API, you didn't ask our team and we were using this, so this actually caused us a huge user outage. So I feel like it's really important to let people know, and let people know quickly. So something like a Slack tool or Pando, or other feedback tools are really helpful because you're getting that feedback as close as possible, so you can hopefully change that behavior.
Mm-hmm. True. When we are talking about job leveling and feedback, this is a moment probably when, as a manager or a leader, you need to start mentoring or pushing your peers one way or the other. So do you have any tips for how to decide or how to convince someone to pursue either IC path or transition to a managerial path? Leslie, Tina.
It's a tricky one because you chose the word convince. I look at it a little bit differently. If I see qualities in someone that make them really more suitable for one track or the other, whether it's mastery or leadership, then I would share that with them, that here are the skills that, I've noticed you do examples of specific instances where they did a really, great job with applying those skills, having a pretty big impact, and then recommending if I wanted them to try on leadership, or if I felt that the impact they would have in a mastery role would be better, then I would share my opinion, and I would recommend that they potentially try that role in a non-formal capacity. Maybe it's a project or something, an opportunity we create for them, if they're open to it. And then it would be their decision. I would not want to convince someone to do something that they really are not interested in, that wouldn't work for them and wouldn't work for the organization either. So I'm just tweaking your question a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what I meant is people are usually, well, maybe not usually, but sometimes they don't feel like they are good enough, or they don't take it into consideration that their qualities actually may be really good in this other track. So this is why I use the convince. But yeah, recommend is the actual way to do it.
Exactly. And you never want to I've seen so many failures where you push a great IC into management and they don't want to do it, and it's just painful for everyone on the whole team. So never try to force someone into management.
It's good that you can always switch back. So
yes,
there is a way out, and I've seen it happen. So it's always great to have this transparency around it. So the question that I have now is why is it important to have transparency around levels and promotions within your organization? Leslie.
Oh yeah. It's so important, honestly, for equality. There's no way for you to, if you don't know what level someone is, then you might not know what level you should be, especially being a woman in tech, and especially earlier in my career when tech had a lot more equality issues than it does today, though we still have a ways to go. If you and your colleague are a level apart, but you don't know that because your organization is trying to keep it secret, they're probably trying to keep it secret so they can underpay someone. And well, so that person is probably an underrepresented group in tech. Let's be honest. So it's so important for equality. And if you're in the United States, employment law, that's very important. So you should really want to ensure that you're paying everyone fairly and leveling everyone fairly. And if you keep promotions secret, it becomes weird. You're creating this weird tension around people because everyone wants to be able to celebrate their promotion, right? And if you're saying don't tell any of your coworkers you got a promotion, it's like you're creating tension between someone and their coworkers where there really shouldn't be any tension. I can understand the temptation because maybe you don't want to have that hard conversation with another person who wants a promotion about why they're not ready. But if you're a manager, it's why you get paid money to have these hard conversations. So also you can look at the job ladder, right? You can say, hey, look, you're not ready for promotion yet. Here are the areas to work on. Here's what I need you to do. And you're tying it back to the job ladder so you can make this concrete path. So it helps make the hard conversation a little less hard.
Okay. Tina, do you think there is something to add?
Yeah, I mean, I would echo Leslie's comments. Promotions are opportunities for us to celebrate. And the more we celebrate promotions, the more it encourages other people to work towards their promotion. Yes, it can mean that sometimes there's hard conversation. There's sometimes hard conversations to have with someone else who believes they should be. So, either they're not ready or maybe there's actually a mistake. Like there have been times that managers do make mistakes, and it's the sooner we acknowledge that and actually remediate that, the better example we set for fairness. It's really, really hard assessing people fairly. It's really, really hard giving equal kind of opportunities to each individual on the team. It's a tough job. So when we make it transparent, yes, we're putting ourselves up for more scrutiny, but also we're giving ourselves more data points so that we can learn from them. And yes, hard conversations and saying to someone, sorry, you're not ready, but these are the 5 reasons why, or these are the 5 things that you need to do for yourself to be ready, is a better spot to be in.
Exactly, because you're taking that uncomfortable conversation and turning it into a growth conversation.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. Limiting the possibility for gossip and saying that something happened behind the closed doors is a great thing to do. Transparency, clear communication. This is something that we like to work with. And yeah, so I think what is pretty clear from our talk is that having a clear leveling ladder, tools that helps score someone on this level to put in one place is something that is meaningful for all the employees. So it's really great. Would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, just remember, start making your career ladder if you haven't already. I know it's hard, but there's plenty of tools out there, and if someone's put something online, just steal theirs.
Better to have something.
Yeah, it can seem like an overwhelming thing before you start leveling, but I think just starting with one of the larger companies' published leveling framework is a good way to experiment. I mean, I like to use the word experiment, especially if it's a small organization. It's much easier to experiment and start to get some feedback around how that might fit into your department, your organization, and then tweak it. Every time we do promotions and every time we do interview, we get feedback, and we've been tweaking that leveling definition and thing like almost every quarter. So it's not like you start with something and it has to be perfect. Start with something that's good enough, and then keep on making it better for your organization.
Plus 100. Career ladders aren't set in stone. They're on electronic documents. You can edit them.
Yes, fortunately. So I would say that the one key takeaway from us today is start doing, introduce the others, make it clear, build the culture of feedback around it. And things will get better with time, and you can tweak things. So that's a powerful thing to have. So thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Tina, for your time. It was great to talk with you. And thank you to all of our attendees. Goodbye.
Thank you.